Build a bright financial future for your team with a unique 401k program available only to ACEC members, giving you enhanced fiduciary protection and a significant reduction of personal liability, with advantages that even the largest firms can't get on their own. Thanks to aggregated buying power and the scale and expertise of our 3 advisory firms, CapTrust brings access to institutional level investments, a fund lineup to fit different investment styles, and personal advisory services for each plan participant. Empower provides record keeping, advanced cybersecurity, and education for participants and plan sponsors. MWE gives legal oversight for ERISA compliance, all at low fees that leave more money in your team's retirement accounts. Attract and retain the best talent with the retirement program commissioned and overseen by engineers for engineers, the ACEC Retirement Trust. Welcome to Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies, brought to you by the ACEC Retirement Trust. And very, very, very happy that they are sponsoring our podcast. The ACEC Retirement Trust is a great benefit to ACEC members, and we encourage everyone out there to take advantage of it for your employees. And today, we're coming at the end of the week of an anniversary of the 1-year anniversary of the passage of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Believe it or not, it's actually 1 year old. I can remember us being in Marco Island, Florida for our fall conference, 2 years ago, waiting and hoping that this thing was going to pass. And lo and behold, we left. And in a matter of days, it actually went through and finally passed the House and the Senate. And to recognize this anniversary, I am very pleased to be joined by Matt Reiffer, of course, on our advocacy team who handles transportation policy, but more important, Art Barrett, our current board chair, who has been really instrumental in the advocacy effort leading up to the IIJA passage and really an active member of the grassroots team that we have always at the townhouse, always taking advantage of members coming into the townhouse and meeting with them and explaining the importance of this bill. And actually, this is something else we could talk about, but to kind of lead off. But Art, you were down in Houston, Texas. I think you're trying to put Robin Greenleaf on a race for the amount of travel by a board chair, because it seems like you're going everywhere. But you were down in Houston earlier for an energy symposium, one of our private market symposiums on the energy market, which of course is tied into the infrastructure bill. Tell us a little bit about that and how that went and kind of your impressions of that event.
Well, thanks, Jeff. And you're right. I am trying to get around to a lot of the different ACEC events. And this was our 4th private market symposium. So it was really important for me to make sure that I got there to see what was being pushed with the private markets, because it's an important part of where we go. I was extremely pleased with the participation and the information presented at the symposium. It was really enlightening. I knew that energy was a real large market, but was amazed at all the different engineering services that are engaged and provide services in that diverse market. Helped me understand the interaction between the energy economy, the economics associated with it, ESG, how that brings things in there, innovations that are occurring in the energy industry, and most important for ACEC was all the different engineering services that we provide to the energy industry for regulations, professional, safe, efficient services that we're continuing to build that and make an important part of what ACEC is pushing to strengthen and make the firms all part of the interaction that we have with that industry, that important growing industry.
With IIJA out there and starting to, money is flowing to different projects, and of course, energy is a big area of investment within the bill. Was there a lot of discussion during the event related to taking advantage of federal funding and like, looking forward to how, engineering firms are going to be looking at and implementing this bill?
So a lot of the IIJA aspect of the bill, that applies to the energy side of things. I mean, there's so many different sustainable features associated with IIJA that will come to play with the energy. And I guess the part of it that rings out tying together is the energy companies. The diesel fuel, or the what is it? The fossil fuel companies that are out there right now are buying into it to make sure that this is a success, because this is where our energy resources are going in the future, is clean energy, and how the IIJ plays together with that is going to be an important part.
Yeah,
of it.
I would say that if there is a firm out there that's looking at taking advantage of a lot of the sustainability and green energy funding, especially all the work being done with the hydrogen hubs across the country, to make sure that you let us know about it. Because when we were in a meeting not too long ago at the White House talking about another effort that we're undertaking, this infrastructure roadshow, they were very interested in making sure that they were able to talk about and to spotlight projects that were not just IIJA, but also Inflation Reduction Act and CHIPS Act, related projects. So that work in the private sector, that work in assisting the development or deployment of clean and sustainable energy, is something that we will want to spotlight, and the White House also wants to take a look at. So keep us in mind on that. They're very interested in doing that. Matt, I mean, you've been working on the policy side of this for a long time, and in your work with both ACEC members and with all the state departments of transportation and other stakeholders, what are you hearing about the potential roadblocks for clean implementation of the bill? We always talk about the positive of the numbers that we're seeing, but what are some of the potential roadblocks to making sure that it actually works out as it's designed to do?
Yeah, I put those into two buckets, Jeff. The first one is workforce, and two elements of that. Obviously, on the industry side, both in the engineering space as well as with our partners on the construction side, just access to a capable, qualified workforce, so that we've got the talent that we need to deliver the services and the projects that are going to be funded under the bill. Obviously, I think every ACEC member firm out there is trying to hire, and they're competing for that limited pool of talent. So we gotta grow the pipeline. We got to get more folks, educated. We got to make sure that we can retain folks that are in from overseas, into the workforce, so that we've got the engineers, the technicians, and other professionals that we need to do the work. And then the other aspect of the workforce challenge is on the public side, the internal capacity of the agencies, the state DOTs, the local governments, and anybody that's going to be managing and receiving funds under the IIJA. I mean, they're all short-staffed too, and they're stretched thin. They're facing retirements, and you've got a lot of new entrants into the federal market space. There's so many programs with funds flowing to local entities that just don't have the experience or the technical capabilities of managing, all the federal rules and regulations that go along with those dollars. So the workforce piece is going to be a challenge. Everybody recognizes it. I mean, there's just no kind of easy button here. There's a lot of solutions and activities in place there. But that is a threat, opportunity, but also a threat. The other big challenge that we're seeing is on the regulatory side, just with getting projects moving through with the regulatory approval process. And again, sort of two elements of that. One is on the environmental side, the NEPA process. This is a persistent challenge. and getting just collaborating, getting an efficient process together to get the reviews and the approvals necessary to get those projects out the door. And then the other side of this is the new Build America, Buy America domestic sourcing requirements. And there's pretty expansive requirements that were included in the IIJA to use the purchasing power of the federal government and the leverage that those dollars have to bolster domestic manufacturing capabilities, which is a laudable goal. But there's a lot of construction materials and manufactured products that go into these things that we just don't have available right now. So the agencies are struggling with that, with developing guidance on implementation, processing, the necessary waivers where appropriate, until those things can be domestically sourced. So that's an ongoing challenge as well on IIJA.
Yeah. Art, on your end, both as your, in your work with Ganna Fleming and then also as chair, I mean, what's your perspective on this, on the roadblocks? Matt outlined a number of understandable potential threats to implementation. I mean, where do you come down on what we need to be looking out for?
I guess a couple of places that Matt touched on that I really strongly agree with is our staff, being able to retain employees within our firms, to be able to pay them a fair rate, to make sure that we're providing professional services. We just celebrated the Brooks Act, and to make sure that we can continue providing professional services with our staff, and making sure that the clients or the owner's staff had the capabilities to understand what needs to be done on a project. And I think a lot of the ACEC local organizations are getting together to team with the owners to make sure that their staff understands, what needs to be done on a project as well. And so we have, joint project management trainings that go together with consultant staff as well as client staff to both have understanding of how things move forward and relationships. And that streamlining of proposals or streamlining of permits, is very important, because, as projects get delayed with where we are and with inflation right now, they get delayed a year and it costs 10% more to build it. And if you have $100 million project, all of a sudden you're $10 million over budget. So that streamlining approach, making sure that projects are done in a quality and professional manner, that they can move forward is extremely important.
Yeah, I think that from what you said, it's kind of a threat and an opportunity from ACEC's perspective, or at least from member firms' perspectives, because you have this, changeover in staff, or you have capacity issues, but then you also have that opportunity for our member firms to take on that trusted advisor role and help train and build a relationship with owners and agencies to understand the process and create a streamlined process, a more efficient process, which will pay benefits and dividends down the line years from now when you have that close relationship between the engineer, the owner, or the agency, which then goes to the whole QBS argument, the fact that you're not retaining a service, you're not retaining just a product at the end of the day. Is a long-term relationship-based process that goes into these projects. And how do you feel the ACEC, what could it be doing to kind of stepping up in this position and doing more to kind of help create that relationship or build upon those relationships?
A lot of our firms are providing program management, project management services. And again, I feel it's real important that the engineering firms are providing these services, because they understand how a project is done, and they can have input as to how it's directed to be done in a professional, safe manner versus just the cheapest way out there. again, going back to Brooks Act, part of the Brooks Act came across because they wanted to make sure that engineering services were provided in a professional manner, in a safe manner, quality manner. And as program managers, we can continue to provide that big picture outlook on a project. And I think that ACEC and our member firms are engaging in that now, and it will be fruit to bear for the public as we go forward by providing, again, the services of understanding what needs to be done.
Going to, I guess, slightly the political environment now. I mean, Art, you were at the White House last month when the administration and Mayor Landrieu kind of announced their principles of, how, IIJA should be implemented moving forward. And of course, having, Mayor Landrieu, who was also at our, he was at our event in Washington in the spring earlier this year. We have relationships with him. We have a relationship with, of course, Secretary Buttigieg. Looking ahead at year 2 of the bill, what do you kind of get a sense of as far as the priorities of the Biden administration?
So, I mean, the IIJA, or bipartisan infrastructure law, political, we have to call it different names, but the formula value, or the formula funding that came out, really kicked it off well. And it was increased funding from what we've seen in the past. And it added new services to it. And the transit, the broadband, water, utilities, interstate, all types of things are engaged in it and making things a lot better. And that's really working well. Going forward, there's a strong emphasis that came out there as far as infrastructure works. And it's how we work with the communities to make the projects more sustainable, to make the projects more in line with community values. Years ago, decades ago, the interstate systems did a fantastic job of connecting cities, but they came through the cities and they divided the cities and broke the cities up. And a big part of what was discussed at the summit there was, how do we address some of those issues as we move forward? And how do we put projects back together, communities back together again? Many of our firms are engaged with, projects like Deck Over, where, there's an interstate that has two parts of different communities on the different sides of it that are isolated from each other. So, some of the projects that are coming out, and say I'm proud that we're engaged with some of them, are how do you build a deck over the interstate and put park property and access for people to come back and forth across it. It's revitalizing the cities, and it's working together to increase mobility, getting people to and from work, transit services, that can get somebody from work to their home, to their, services they need for their families, and education, and put all those things together. And so, I think that's where a lot of the emphasis is going to go, coming in the future. We certainly will still have the formula values that are formula funding that's out there to make sure that our interstate systems, our water systems, municipal services are all maintained and up to date. But we also need to put our communities back together and make sure that we practice ESG at the level where it's beneficial to all the communities in the country.
And Matt, from your angle at dealing with staff and the people at the White House who are trying to get this done, I mean, what are you hearing?
Yeah, I agree with everything Art said, obviously. The environmental justice and, investments in disadvantaged communities, that reconnecting communities, points of emphasis are really high priorities for the administration and for the other stakeholders that they're going to be partnering with. The other component that they highlight continually is on the climate change, addressing the challenges, bolstering efficiencies, reducing emissions, as well as the resilience and sustainability side as well. So, across the board, there's going to be statutory, criteria and eligibilities for projects and programs, but that's for them as a whole government, initiative and priority. So that component of it, there's funds in the IIJA specifically dedicated, to resilience sustainability, but every grant and all of the program guidance, again, across the modes and across the departments is going to have this prioritization of resilience sustainability built in. And so our firms, they recognize that, as Art said, they're doing this work already for clients. They'll continue to do it, but from a competitive standpoint, that's going to be a differentiator.
How do you think first to Art, the results of, we're still looking for the results of all the races, but we know what we know now, which is that essentially it's the Republicans having almost the same majority that the Democrats had, before the election. And of course, the Senate staying in the hands of the Democrats. There have been some reports out already from I guess soon to be Chairman Graves that, he's going to be looking at a lot of oversight hearings on IIJA, and they're going to be scrutinizing, how the money is being spent and where it's being spent. And to an extent, I could imagine a lot of those areas that you just listed out, both of you, on sustainability and equity, are going to be, at the crosshairs. How do you feel this is going to shake out from a oversight perspective and a political perspective over the next Congress?
So I always like to say that ACEC firms don't like to get political. We'd like to play politics. We'd like to implement policies. And as professional engineers, it's our responsibility to do what's best for communities, do what's best for safety and the efficiency of designs and the professionalism of designs. So for years, we have been pushing for increased funding for the infrastructure systems. It's needed. I mean, and it's come across from both parties. Both parties understand that we have to have an efficient infrastructure system in order for our interstate commerce to work, in order for our country to continue to prosper and succeed. So there's politics that says, oh, well, we can't, support something that another party came up with. But there's policies and the political aspect of it that says we have to make sure that we're providing services for the U.S. economy, for the U.S. citizens. And I feel that it's in place now. There's funding available. There might be some shifts as to priorities, but that there's an understanding out there that we need to have the world-class infrastructure system across all the different areas that the IIJA plays in. And so I'm confident that we as ACEC will continue to advocate for what's best for society, what's best for the infrastructure system. And I have faith that our legislators will pay attention to that and not play politics, that they're going to do what's best for the country.
And Matt, on your end, I mean, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think you're right about, the House Republicans and the presumptive chairman, Sam Graves at TNI, the oversight and Investigations will be a real high priority for them. I don't expect any significant changes to the sort of framework or funding levels included in the IIJA for a couple of reasons. One, obviously, you noted Democrats retain control of the Senate, and then as long as the President Biden is in the White House, I mean, that would be very, very hard to get any significant changes or anything that would undermine those funding levels, enacted. You may have some tweaks on the margins and some, improvements that I think would generate bipartisan support. But yeah, as Art said, in many respects, this is a difference of priorities and sort of policy preferences. A lot of that is driven by geography, urban and rural needs, and sort of legacy communities and growing and expanding communities. So, depending on where you're situated, you may see things differently. But fundamentally, there's broad bipartisan support for, the major components of this bill. And I think that'll continue to be the case going forward. The incoming House Republicans will be dedicated to making sure that is implemented then, along with consistent with congressional intent and how they view that. And the last comment I'll make, to Art's point, for ACEC being engaged, we got a big job to do in terms of education and outreach to the freshman members, all these incoming members. There's going to be a huge freshman class. Some of them will have experience at the state level or be aware of what's going on in the infrastructure sector because of our engagement there. But a lot of them may not be. So, we've got to make sure that they're up to speed with, the framework of the bill, the benefits, the impact that it's going to have on their communities. And as Art indicated, just economic prosperity of the whole country, is going to be hugely benefited by these. So, we're going to have to tell our story and make sure they're aware. So there's a lot of work to do going into next year.
And carrying that forward to, the next bill. We have to make sure that we perform on this so that not just the politicians, but the public recognizes the value of what these bills bring to them.
Yeah. We're like the dog that caught the car. It's like, all right, we've been asking for this money for a long time, right? And it's like, all right, now we got to deliver. We got to show the public the benefits and show lawmakers that we're putting it to good use.
Well, one of the ways we can do that, honestly, and it's a perfect transition, is showing and spotlighting examples of successful infrastructure, and especially as we get into project delivery from the IIJA. We have a wealth of projects from our own awards program, the Engineering Excellence Awards, that we can really shine a spotlight on to show policymakers and the public what happens when engineers, public agencies, and communities come together to deliver infrastructure that works for the economy, for equity, for the environment. And we're doing that through an engineering and public works roadshow, which is going to be a series of events. It's kicking off starting on Cyber Monday, the 28th of November, at the Port of Long Beach in California. And we're going to be highlighting the International Gateway Bridge, which was an award winner, a grant award winner for a WSP, which managed the project. And it has been it's a significant improvement for not only mobility in Southern California and Long Beach and the Los Angeles area, but for supply chain and logistics. It allows the port to service the larger post-Panamax ships coming in from Asian Pacific markets. It allows for significantly higher vehicle traffic to cross the bridge and service the port and also the communities in Southern California. And then it is a major economic driver of hundreds of billions of dollars sustaining economic activity. So we're going to be spotlighting that and going around the country. And it's a joint effort. We kind of brought along ASCE and APWA to kind of the three legs of the stool. You got the engineering firms, the individual engineers who work at those firms, and then the public agencies who maintain and extend the operational lifespan of the infrastructure. Art, what are you looking forward to at the event, and kind of what's your feeling on why this effort is important?
Well, we've talked about the IIJA and how important it is, and it's important to the public. How do we demonstrate the value that engineers, that owners, that their tax dollars are going to provide for out there? And the talent pipeline. How do we make sure that people recognize that engineering is an exciting profession to be in? It's a rewarding profession to be in. It's you give back to the communities, and I feel like the Roadshow is going to help us demonstrate to the general public, to hopefully future engineers, and certainly to legislators and politicians of the value that these projects bring, not just to the local community, but to the entire country, and how they build upon each other. And again, I think the strongest point of it that I'd love to see is people recognizing the professionalism of engineering, the qualifications that we bring to these projects, and the excitement of a career going to the future for people that are interested in it.
It's going to be a great event. We are getting a really positive turnout for the event, and both we're going to have some representation from really federal, state, and local government as well at the port. And it will be live streamed. So stay tuned for that. We will get information out to everyone about how to watch it live. And of course, Art, you'll be joined by our CEO, Linda Bauer-Dar, and we'll be right there, and it's going to be a great event. So that's the first Roadshow event. There will be many more to come. And we'll be going around the country, spotlighting the fruits of everyone's labor, good infrastructure, and what it means to the economy and society. So we covered a lot of ground, and I really appreciate the time both of you have taken today to kind of go over this. And there's a lot of work to do, but I don't know. I feel very optimistic. I think that the connections that we've made with the administration, the ongoing work we're doing for outreach to Congress, and just the work we're doing as an industry is going to help make this bill a success, so we can set up for what comes after, and hopefully another robust investment in infrastructure. So, Art and Matt, thank you very much for joining the program.
Jeff, thank you. I look forward to participating in the Roadshow as well, and we'll see y'all soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Art. Thanks, Jeff. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving, and to everyone out there, happy Thanksgiving. This has been Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. We'll see you next time.